Okay, let's try and get another one done. I want to try and finish this dang book. If I can today. If not today, then by the end of the week. Then we can get into the temples, the church stuff. To the baptism ceremony. Everyone was busy the morning of the ceremony. Mainly Mom, though. We needed to hurry and eat breakfast, clean up, and get me changed into my outfits, so she got mad when I overslept and ate my breakfast slowly. I basically shoveled food in my mouth and changed in the bedroom, while Tuli and Mom cleaned up my dishes. Mom and Tuli had been adding little touches to the outfit over time, so now it wasn't just looking fancy with the cloth bundled up to add waves. They had decorated it with flowers made during our winter handiwork, which made it look more decorative. If Benno hadn't given us more thread than we needed for the flowers, we wouldn't have had the money to spare for them. After putting on the dress like I would a t-shirt, I wrapped the blue sash around my waist and tied it into a bow. The end of the sash hung by my leg. Mine, weren't you going to double loop the sash? Asked Tuli, pursing her lips. I undid the sash and wrapped it around my stomach twice. But despite being able to somehow manage it in the winter, it was now just a little too short for that. Oh, did I eat too much? Is my stomach sticking out? Nuh-uh, you just got bigger, Mine. We made it so the hem would go beneath your knees a little, but now it's exactly at your knees. It seems I had grown a little during the spring. That was normal for most children, but the devouring slowed my growth so much that I wasn't used to it. I was struck by a sense of awe, moved at my own growth, but Tuli was more focused on practical matters. She took a look at the sash and thought about how to fix it. It's just not the right length. Letting it hang like that would look bad. Maybe we should cut it? No way. That would be a waste. I'm only wearing it for the baptism. It won't be too long. I could just double it up. But you couldn't do that just now. Not the wrapping, the bow. I wrapped the sash around my stomach and gave it a double bow knot. Once it was all tied up, I shifted the sash so the ribbon-esque knots were behind me. So, does it look good? So cute! Wow, how did you do that? I started to explain how double bow knots worked to Tuli when suddenly my mom came into the room. If you're finished changing your clothes, Mine, hurry and get your hair ready. I need to change too. Okay, I'll tell you later, Tuli. We moved to the kitchen. Everyone had used Rinsham last night, so my whole family had silky smooth hair. Even Dad had seemed interested yesterday, so I washed his hair for him. I asked what had gotten into him, and it turns out Otto had bragged about washing his hair with Karina. As always, Dad was competitive and in the weirdest of places. Mine, I don't know how to bundle up hair with a hairpin, so at least let me brush your hair and stuff. Tuli's eyes started shining after she saw me brushing my hair. I had braided Tuli's hair for her baptism, and it seemed she wanted to return the favor however she could. I nodded and gave her the brush. She started brushing my hair while humming, seemingly in a very good mood. Mine, your hair is so straight and pretty. It smells nice, too. Your hair smells the same way, doesn't it? I thanked Tuli for brushing my hair and bundled it up like I usually did, making sure not to crush my swaying hairpin. More complex hairstyles wouldn't really work for me since any strings I tried to use would just come right undone. Okay, that's that. Despite the special hairpin, I was still putting my hair up in the same way that I always did. It didn't take very long. The hairpin was noticeably heavier, and I could feel the small flowers shaking if I moved my head at all. I shook my head, amused, and Tuli clapped happily. Wow, so cute. Looks so good on your hair, Mine. I love the way it shakes when you move. It looks wonderful on you, Mine, Mom added. How did this little rich girl end up here, Dad said jokingly. You're gonna be the cutest girl in the whole ceremony, Mine. Once I was dressed, my parents came out of the bedroom and flooded me with praise. I appreciated the compliments, but it felt kind of embarrassing, too. Dad, you said the same thing to Tuli. Of course I did. Both my daughters are the cutest, said Dad, lifting up Tuli and I with one arm each. We flailed and giggled to try and get away, but he just tightened his grip while cackling. God, my hair's gonna get messed up. Goodness, enough playing. We need to go outside, said Dad. Dad let us go, but it was too late. Mom looked at my hair and sighed. Mine, your hair will fall apart if we don't set it up again. Dad shrugged and said he was sorry. I laughed and took out the hairpin so I could redo my hair. My hair wasn't good for complex hairstyles, but it gestured us outside. We went down the stairs to the closet, and indeed a ton of neighbors were already there. There's Ralph and the others. Lutz is wearing a hand-me-down, as expected. I looked to see where Tuli was pointing, and saw Lutz surrounded by a huge crowd wearing hand-me-downs from Ralph. I hadn't seen what Ralph was wearing, so I didn't know it was a hand-me-down, but Lutz was wearing a white shirt with white pants and a light blue sash. Sasha, the oldest brother, had probably worn the same thing. The outfit and sash had been made for him. Lutz! Mine? Gracious, what's with that outfit? You look like a rich girl. Carla caught me on my way to Lutz. Her loud voice drew attention to me, and other neighbors approached. It seemed I wouldn't make it to Lutz without giving an explanation. This is a hand-me-down from Tuli. That's a hand-me-down? Uh-huh. It was too big for me, so we bunched it up and sewed it together so that the skirt would be just long enough for me. It was a really simple fix. I explained what we had done briefly, and wife after wife gathered around me. I was so much shorter than even kids my age, so it was a bit scary to have a crowd of adults squatting all around me to be eye level with me. I subconsciously grabbed my mom's skirt behind me. I wouldn't have guessed that this was just a remade outfit. Your clothes look really fancy. Let's see here. Guess you could do this because you're so much shorter than Tuli. Couldn't do the same myself. I thought this was a super fancy sash, but you just had to double the bows up because it's too long. Everyone said what came to mind. Some people threw in celebratory congratulations, but they didn't feel too sincere to me. The hairpin is a real piece of work, too. How expensive was it? The topic shifted to the price of my hairpin. Mom shook her head with a smile. We made it ourselves. It didn't cost anything. Since we just altered Tuli's outfit instead of making a new one from scratch, we had extra thread left over. My daughter's asking me to buy one for her baptism. Could you tell us how to make them ourselves? I take a really thin needle to sew the thread. If you have one of those, the rest is simple. They must not have expected to hear that we made the hairpin ourselves. All the questions shifted to Mom instead. I stealthily slid away while she was flooded with question after question. Okay, escape successful. The moment I let out a sigh of relief, I was surrounded by a group of girls interested in my clothes and hairpin. They were mostly older girls who had finished their baptisms before I had started going out to the force, so unlike Tuli, I had basically never interacted with them before. Ah, so cute! Let me see! Tuli made this hairpin, right? Wow! A girl who did indeed seem to know Tuli touched my hairpin, which made it slide out of my hair and undo my bundle. Sorry, what should I do? The girl held my hairpin and paled, having completely undone my hairdo. It's okay, I can fix it really easily. I held up my hand and smiled. She gave me the hairpin and I redid my hair. I scooped it up, wrapped it around the hairpin, and twisted the hairpin before digging inside. Well, how did you do that? Isn't it just a hair ornament? It's an ornament and a hairpin. That's just how great mine is. Tuli puffed out her chest with pride and smiled for some reason. The girls proceeded to observe and tuck my clothes all over in awe while Tuli proudly explained how it all worked. They were squealing and having fun, but they were basically doing and saying the same thing that the older wives were. I slid out of that circle too and sighed. It wasn't normal for so many strangers to talk to me at once. Honestly, I was a bit exhausted already. In search of a place to rest, I headed in Lutz's direction. Lutz! Oh, mine finally got away from Mom, huh? It took you long. Lutz turned around to see me and gasped, freezing up in place. What's wrong? It's nothing, just... Lutz faltered and Ralph walked up, pushing him aside. What's with that outfit? It's a lot different from what Tuli wore. We remade what she wore so it would fit me and... Let me down, Zasha! Before I could finish explaining my outfit to Ralph, Zasha stuck his hands beneath my arms and lifted me up. Congrats, mine, you're still so tiny and cute, not like Lutz. He's all cheeky and mean now. Not cute at all. Congrats, mine. That outfit looks great on you, but seriously, you are freaking tiny. Don't look old enough for a baptism at all. You may not be able to tell, Seek, but I've gotten a little bigger. I went to Lutz for peace and quiet, but his older brothers were tossing me around. Don't! I pouted to show I was getting mad, and Lutz started to panic a little. Come on, guys, stop. Look at mine. She's getting sick. Come on, mine. Get a grip. You don't want to pass out before your baptism. I let the strength drain from my body as Zasha kept me held up high. Zasha was reaching adulthood tomorrow. It was basically a strong... Wait, adulthood? How old is he? Wait a minute. Which one was Zasha? I want to go home. You haven't even left yet. Suddenly, the temple bell rang 3 times, each ring echoing and sending vibrations through the city. That was the signal for the baptism ceremony to begin. Out of all our neighbors, only Lutz and I were going to this baptism ceremony. Celebrating adults surrounded us in an instant. Let's go, mine, to the main road. Dad pulled me out of Zasha's arms and lifted me up high, leading the crowd to the main street. Lutz hurriedly chased after him, and I could see over Dad's shoulder the rest of my family and the adults following us. I looked around, and just like during Tuli's ceremony, kids and their families and neighbors were pouring out of side alleys to flood the main street. You feeling okay, mine? I'll carry you to the temple, get some rest. Okay, thanks, Dad. And so it was decided that Dad would carry me to the temple. That seemed like the best idea to me. I still couldn't walk at the same speed as the procession, and the ceremony would be ruined for me if I passed out on the way there. I heard loud cheers approaching our direction. It seemed that the procession had reached us. The families were following the rows of kids from behind, so Dad's plan was to wait and try to get to the very front of the parent section. But if Lutz followed us there, he'd get buried and lose the ability to see anything past the crowd. You go up front, Lutz. Nah, if I lose you two, we'll have to search each other out at the temple. I'll stick around. Maybe you should stick to the side then so you can see Benno's store along the way. Good point. I'll try that. The procession passed by in front of us. We joined in with Lutz beside us. It was so high up in the air that, unlike the last time, I could see the city around me. People on both sides of the main roads waved enthusiastically, whistling in support as they cheered us on. The windows of the buildings facing the main street were thrown open and cheers rained down on us from above as people stuck their heads out. I could see the kids in front of me waving back a proud smile so broad they barely fit on their faces. You wave back too, mine. That's how you say thanks. Dad urged me to wave back, so I clung to him with one arm and used my other to wave while smiling. I tried to visualize how the Japanese emperor and his family waved to people so I could copy what they did. Right, peaceful smile, calm attitude, dignity. I wasn't able to wave with the same regal grace as an emperor, but just having an example I could copy gave me some ground to stand on. At the very least, nobody here would much mock me for trying to copy the emperor. I smiled as peacefully as I could and tried waving my hand as gracefully as I could. Oh no, people are pointing at me. Why are so many of them looking at me? Maybe because Dad was lifting me up? It felt like I was drawing a lot of attention. No, it's more than likely your dress and hairpin, girl. Though it was likely I was just imagining things since everyone was looking in the direction of the procession. Mind, my arm's getting tired. I'm shifting you to the other side. He shifted me over while we waited in the main plaza for the other processions. I had watched Chuli's baptism up until this point. Once everyone was gathered in the plaza, we walked to the temple by the inner wall. The temple, visible from the plaza, was made of white stone, and was as tall as the inner wall, which was even taller than the outer walls. It was a large and magnificent building, but judging by the tall, narrow windows lined up near the top, and the way it was built into the wall, I could guess it was originally built as a fortress, or otherwise, as part of the wall's defenses. But would they really use a military building for religious purposes? I would imagine in times of war, the church participates as well, but this is a temple, used during peace as well. It was probably built with donations made from believers, so... Ultimately, though, my knowledge was founded in Japanese knowledge, and no amount of thinking would give me a reliable answer in this world. All I could do was have fun looking at the temple, which I hadn't paid much attention to before now, and try to guess what it was used for based on how it had been constructed. The processions from other streets fused with ours, so as we headed to the temple. The kids coming from buildings around here looked noticeably different. Cloth that was visibly more expensive than others, and embroidery decorating their otherwise solid white clothing. A bit of walking later, and the Gilberta Company came into view. Benno, Mark, Otto, and Karina were standing in front of it, along with a crowd of familiar faces. Otto wrapped his arm around Karina with a grin and waved at us. Karina did the same, wearing a gentle smile. There's Benno and Mark. Everyone came out of the store to see us. Really? Let's wasn't being held up in the air like me, so he couldn't see Benno's store yet. It was funny watching him jump repeatedly to try and see. Once Lutz finally found Benno's store and started waving, Mark rose a hand, and all the employees started cheering. Lutz, mine, congratulations! I had been caught off guard by how much they stood out among the crowd, but everyone cheering us on made me so happy that I waved back hard along with Lutz. I was so pumped that I wasn't even thinking about acting like the Emperor anymore. Well, duh. I think we should drop by and thank him on our way back from the temple, said Dad as he rustled Lutz's hair, seemingly just as happy as I was. Naturally, both Lutz and I nodded. Hey, mine, is it just me, or is Benno looking kinda annoyed? You think so, too? Amid all the broadly smiling workers waving at us, Benno alone was rubbing his temples and scrunching his face up while looking in our direction. It was the same expression he wore when exasperated at something I had done. I wonder why Benno was making that face. I hadn't done anything, I promise. Oh no, he might have found out about the pound cake thing. Oh no. Girl. Oh dear. We were finally approaching the temple. From the distance, it looked pure white, but as we got closer, I could work out more details. Reliefs were carved into the walls, and there were 4 statues on either side of the entrance. I couldn't tell if they were decorative statues or if they represented various gods. We passed by Frida's house at the front of the procession. Began entering the temple. I could see the Guildmaster and his family by the side of the main street. Lise and Jet were there too. The Guildmaster lifted Frida up as if competing with my dad. Frida blinked in surprise, then waved at me with a smile, yelling, "You look splendid, mine!" loud enough for me to hear through the crowd. Congratulations, mine. It was nice to have people I know congratulating me that I yelled back while waving. Frida, everyone, thank you. Guards in firm poses stood in front of the gate, blocking the temple steps. They wore simplified armor over blue clothing. I could tell from the ornaments decorating their well-polished, shining armor, and the beautiful thread composing their blue clothing that they were wearing ceremonial outfits as well. The 2 wooden doors that served as the entrance to the temple steps were twice as tall as average adults, and had reliefs carved into them as well. We passed through the gate and saw a plaza of white stones spread out before us. In front of us was a large building about 5 stories tall, with smaller buildings about 3 stories tall on either side of it, all connected by passageways. Each building was made of the same white stone as the inner wall, and only the inner building had reliefs and decorations. This is as far as I can go. Mine's in your hands now, Lutz. Yeah, leave her to me. Dad let me down. I took Lutz's hands and walked at the end of the procession toward the wide open temple doors. The once noisy excited children fell silent as soon as they entered the temple, which meant it was getting rapidly quieter as we walked. Which was exactly why Lutz was louder than I expected when he spoke. Hey, mine. I looked at Lutz and quietly whispered, what? Leaning my ear towards him as if we were discussing secrets. I kept looking forward, and Lutz whispered back, those clothes and the hairpin look super good on you. You're so cute, I couldn't believe it. When the others praised me, I just smiled and said thanks, but him whispering that right before we entered the temple threw me off. Why now? I reflexively looked up at Lutz, and he smiled at me with a truly relieved smile. I didn't get the chance before since my brothers got in the way, so I waited until now. Oh, really? Okay, thanks. I held my pounding heart down and kept walking up the steps while holding Lutz's hand. Since we were at the end of the procession, everyone in the plaza could see us, even if they couldn't hear us. It was only after I came home that I learned that Dad had been gritting his teeth while people said, how cute, it looks like they're getting married. as they watched Lutz and I enter the temple holding hands. Oh my god. Seriously, your dad is so freaking overprotective and jealous. Over Lutz. Like I said, I think Lutz would probably be the person that she would possibly get married to if it wasn't for all the other events that happen in the light novels. But yeah. Hold on, how much further do I have left? I don't know why the heck the pages are like this, guys. It's stupid. Okay, only 17 minutes. Okay. I've got plenty more time. A quiet commotion. Whoa! Holy cow! I couldn't hear their voices from the outside, but the second I went into the temple, the shrill cries of the children echoed through all the temple and made my head hurt. I reflexively stopped in place, but Lutz pulled me forward. There's still steps. Watch your feet. I looked at the ground and took a few steps, whereupon the doors closed behind us with heavy creaks. I turned around in surprise at the sudden darkness and saw priests wearing gray robes closing the door. Oh, right, we were the last ones in. A blue-robed priest walked slowly to the front of the tightly shut doors. He then held up a wind chime-esque bell with a strangely colored stone on it and rang it. Immediately, the children fell silent, with only the echoes of their voices still reverberating through the temple. What happened? Lutz couldn't speak either. Or more precisely, he couldn't speak above a bare whisper. Judging by his expression and body language, he was trying to speak in a much louder voice. He was surprised by his own quiet voice and held a hand over his throat. Maybe it's a magic tool. It happened the second the blue-robed priest rung the bell. Likewise, my voice only came out in a whisper, but I was calm since I had seen the priest ring the bell and could guess what had happened. Let's calm down a bit once I explained, realizing the same thing was happening to me since I seemed to have done the trick. At the back of the procession, I let out a sigh of awe and looked up. The temple ceiling was high in the air like an atrium, and rows of round pillars carved with complex designs were lined up next to each other. At about 4 floors worth of height there were tall windows from which light streamed in. The walls and pillars were white, aside from the gold used to decorate them, which made the area look brighter. Only the inner wall was colorful. Unlike the Christian churches I had seen in photos and the like, there weren't any paintings on the wall or stained glass in the windows. Everything was made of pure white stone. It didn't even feel like a Japanese shrine or temple. As far as I knew, it didn't resemble the religious architecture of Southeast Asia either. Well, girl, it's probably more like, shoot. I don't know. Maybe like a Catholic thing or something? I don't know. The wall furthest inside was covered in colorful designs from the floor to the ceiling and had a divine aura to it thanks to the light shining on it, which somewhat resembled mosques, but there was a staircase of about 40 steps leading up to it, and the statues dotting it didn't feel Islamic at all. Maybe that staircase is supposed to resemble a staircase in to the heavens or gods? The statues kind of remind me of the Emperor and Empress dolls used in the Japanese festival Dolls' Day. At the top of the stairs were 2 statues, one male and one female. They seemed like a couple, and since they were at the top of the stairs, I could guess that they were the king and queen of the gods. They were both pure white statues, but the male god was wearing a black cape made with sparkling gold scattered like stars, and the goddess was wearing a golden crown with long pointed tips that resembled light shining from the sun in all directions. The goddess of light and the god of darkness, I guess? Or maybe the goddess of sunlight or the god of night? Either way, their crown and cape make them look really stand out from the other statues. A number of steps down was a statue of a peaceful, plump woman with her arms wrapped around a gleaming yellow grail. Beside her was a woman holding a staff, a man holding a spear, a woman holding a shield, and a man holding a sword, all lined up. It was odd. All the statues were pure white, except the one colored object they were holding. I can imagine there was some deeper meaning resting within what statues were holding what objects. Maybe those were like the Holy Grail and the Holy Sword and so on? Girl, just listen to the freaking tales. Further steps below had statues surrounded by flowers, fruits, clothes, and other items that could be offerings. The more I looked, the more I thought back to Doll's Day. Mind, don't daydream, we gotta keep walking. Oh, sorry. Let's pull me forward, and I sped up my pace to keep up with the procession. The center of the room was empty, allowing the procession to walk forward unhindered. On either side of us were thick red carpets with about a meter of space between them. There were several desks lined up by the inner wall, and a number of priests wearing blue robes were standing behind them performing some kind of ritual. Once the ritual was completed, the child would be guided by a gray-robed priest to either the left or right. I could see them removing their shoes, and sitting on the carpet. The procession moved slowly forward, and eventually Lutz could see what the ritual was. He let out a quiet after peering forward. "What's wrong, Lutz? Did you see what they were doing?" I asked, but Lutz's eyes wavered, and it was obvious he didn't want to say anything. Eventually he sighed and looked at me. "They're doing the blood seal stuff you hate. Must be a magic tool they're using. Everyone's pressing their blood on it." I wanted to pretend that I hadn't heard anything, and I kind of wanted to just about face and leave. But Lutz held my hand tightly and wouldn't let me leave. "Give it up. It looks like they're registering us or something. This might have something to do with that city citizenship stuff." You're right. I think that's probably what's happening too. Otto and Benno had been saying that following our baptism we will be recognized as citizens of the city and have our citizenship. That meant that whether I liked it or not, I needed to finish the ceremony if I wanted my citizenship. Why do magic tools like blood so much? Who knows? Whenever it came time to deal with magic stuff, I had to cut my finger and touch it with blood. A pain wasn't something I would get used to so easily. I waited my turn while quivering in fear and eventually saw a curt-looking blue-robed priest take the thing that looked like a needle, poke it into a kid's finger, and press that finger firmly against a white, flat metal. The kid opened his mouth as if to scream, but nothing came out. He then was guided to sit down elsewhere while he trembled and held his finger down in pain. It kind of makes sense as to why they remove y'all's voices like that, so that way they wouldn't be screaming in the dang place. Okay, next, come forward. The crowd thinned out, and one of the priests overseeing a now empty desk called out to me. Let's push me from behind, and I stumbled my way towards it. The blue-robed priest narrowed his eyes somewhat suspiciously, and after glancing over me, held out his hand. "Raise your palm and hold out your hand. It'll be drawing blood, but it won't hurt much at all." He said it wouldn't hurt, but nobody who ever said that was telling the truth.
Interruption in it.
Yeah, whoever said that was telling the truth. Yeah, I completely agree. He poked me with the needle, and a sharp pain similar to touching a burning pan shot through my finger before red blood started puckering out. I could feel the blood draining from my face as I stared at my hurt finger. Priest, place your finger against this. This priest didn't aggressively force my finger against the metal like the meaner one I had seen. He was more gentle and handed the small metal to me. I just had to get a little blood on it, and my finger didn't hurt as much as I expected, which was a relief. I'm glad he wasn't mean or rough, but my finger still hurt a lot. Hurt a bit. It struck me that the quiet-inducing magic tool probably existed not to silence small talk, but to muffle the sounds of kids crying out in pain. Yeah. Most likely. You two are the last ones. Please follow me. A young gray-robed priest who had probably just reached adulthood called out to Lutz, and I then headed to the carpet. He explained that we needed to take our shoes off before getting on it, so we did. A lot of kids were sitting with their legs thrown out, but I was sitting cross-legged. The temple was wide open like a school gym. With so many kids my age around me, I somehow felt that cross-legged was the right way to sit here. Before long, the blue priests left the desk, having finished registering all of us. They put the medals into a box that they carried out of the room. The gray priests proceeded to prepare the next step. They carried out the desks, and in their place set down an extravagant podium. The blue priests returned and lined up on either side of the podium. The gray priests, having seemingly finished their preparations, lined up by the walls around us. It felt like they were teachers watching us to make sure we kept quiet during assembly. The High Bishop enters. Intoned a blue priest as he waved a rod in the air. The sound of several bells ringing filled the air, and a door to the side opened. From it came an older man, wearing a large white robe decorated with a golden sash and blue embroidery. I could tell he was the High Bishop. He deliberately walked up to the podium and gently placed what he was holding onto it. Wait, is that a book? I rubbed my eyes and strained my eyes to make sure. Once I saw him start slowly flipping through pages, I was certain it was definitely a book. Maybe it was this religion's Bible or some other holy scripture. Let's a book. They have a book. I put my hand on Les's shoulder as he fidgeted and pointed excitedly at the podium. He leaned forward a bit to get a closer look. Where? What kind of book is it? It's right there, and the High Bishop is turning its pages. See? It was bound in leather, and the sensitive corners were bound in metal clasp for protection. I could also see a gemstone buried in the cover. That's a book? Looks super expensive, nothing like the ones you make. My books are all about practicality. Don't compare them to books that are basically art. It's like comparing the sword that statue has to your knife. Huh? Alright, guess you're surprised to see books here? Actually, I guess I'm not. Now that I think about it, it makes perfect sense for books to be here. I was your standard Japanese person without much interest in religions, so I hadn't really visited any temples in my day, but I knew that religious institutions tended to have Bibles, holy scriptures, sutras, and basically just written records of the religion's teachings. They had books. I didn't have to force my weak body to its limits to make books in the middle of crushing poverty. Books already existed. Just like the Merchant's Guild was at the cutting edge of information, the church was at the cutting edge of theology, math, music, sculpturing, all science and art that brought humanity closer to the divine. The Christian church had likewise historically been the forefront of academic advancement, and in Japan, men of culture and wisdom had gathered at shrines and temples to push knowledge forward. God, I should have come to the temple sooner. Why didn't I think of this before? I'm so dumb. I could have read books without all that struggling. It was probably a good thing that my yelling was kept quiet. I shouted on the inside, and Les shrugged his shoulders, exasperated. I mean, looks like you forgot this, but kids aren't allowed in the temple before their baptism ceremony. Even if you figured this out sooner, the guards would have just turned you away. He had a good point. Only kids who had finished their baptisms could enter the temple. But, I think it's fate that I'm reading a book during my baptism ceremony the first time I've been to the temple. All kids go to the temple once they hit 7 years old. Fate's got nothing to do with it. Gee, let's stop being a buzzkill. I get that you're pumped to see a book, so calm down. I don't want you passing out in here. Les tried to calm me down before I got too excited, but how could I calm down now? Nuh-uh, there's a book that's this close to me. No way can I calm down. It's impossible. Impossible or not, calm down. Not like they're going to let you read that book anyway. Oh, you're right. There was a book, but not one I could read myself. It had a gemstone on it, leather cover even. They would never let me touch it. My excitement drained in an instant and my shoulders slumped. As of today, began the High Bishop, you have all become 7 years of age and officially recognized citizens of the city. Congratulations! He was an older man, a practical grown-up grandpa it looked like, but his voice was strong and echoed throughout the temple. Oh, girl, your opinion of him is going to change later on in this dang light novel. He first congratulated us, then began reading aloud from the Bible-esque book. As my heart and soul belonged to books, I leaned forward and eagerly listened to every word. He was telling us stories of the creator gods and the changing of the seasons, similar to what Benno had told me once before. He spoke with simple language so it would be easier for kids to understand. The god of darkness lived a lonely life all by himself for so long it would numb our minds just thinking about it. Thus began the story. The god of darkness then met the goddess of light. A lot happened and they ended up married with children. The goddess of water, the god of fire, the goddess of wind, and the goddess of earth were all born, and in the process, the world we lived in was created. The "a lot happened" part was probably touched up to be more appealing to children and was basically like a soap opera. But, well, that was how religious myths tended to go. Most mythology I was familiar with was chaotic and all over the place. You could spend all day poking fun at the stories. This story was personally fun for me already since I hadn't heard it before, but I was making it even more fun by comparing it to the mythologies I knew already. On the other hand, Luntz was fidgeting with boredom and looked at me jealously, not getting what I found so fun about it. Why are you liking this so much, Mine? What's fun about it? Everything about it's fun, I answered with a full smile and Lutz sighed, shaking his head in exasperation. Cool, good for you. I love hearing new stories. The creation myth was followed by a myth about the changing of the seasons. Benno had framed off seasons as thus. In spring, snow melts into water that gives life to sprouting plants. In summer, the sun burns like fire and plants grow leaves. In autumn, the cool wind chills fruit as they grow. In the winter, the life and earth of our land sleeps. However, the actual myth is quite different. The goddess of earth is the youngest daughter of the goddess of light and the god of darkness. One day, the god of life fell in love with the goddess of earth at full sight. The god of life fell in love with the goddess of earth at first sight. He asked her father, the god of darkness, for her hand in marriage. The god of darkness happily accepted, hoping that they would give birth to many children. The myth explaining seasons seemed fun to me, but Lutz sighed with boredom as he listened, so it would probably be best to summarize it. Put simply, the god of life was far too possessive and froze the goddess of earth within ice and snow to impregnate her, then felt jealous for even their unborn children. Winter occurred as her power was stolen. The goddess of light began to worry for the goddess of earth, whom she had not seen since her marriage, and upon discovering her, melted the ice. The goddess of water flowed away the melted ice, along with the god of life, weakened by his own actions, and along with her goddess friends, gave her strength to the children, the seeds. This was the spring where seeds bloomed. The god of fire, lending his powers along with his friends to help the planted lives grow, was the summer, and soon those lives ripened. That returned the god of life's strength, and he came looking for the goddess of earth. The goddess of wind, seeking to keep him away from her little sister, the goddess of earth, combined their powers, and in the process brought about the autumn where the crops are harvested. Once all his brothers and sisters were weakened, the god of life gave the upper hand. He froze the goddess of earth in ice and snow once again. The other deities wished to just kill the god of life, but that would prevent any new lives from being born. Winter was his brother, and sisters waiting in frustration for their powers to return. That back and forth looped endlessly, making the seasons. By the way, since Lutz and I were born in the summer, our patron deity was the god of fire, and we were characterized by being passionate and hot-blooded. It seemed that he also granted favor when it came to teaching and guiding others. The High Bishop brought the tale to a close and shut the book. Now then, I will teach you how to pray. Praying to the gods and expressing your thanks to them is the key to receiving stronger divine protection. Oh god, this. Oh my god. Here we go with the kowtowing and everything, he said with a fairly serious expression as he slowly walked to the front of the podium. Meanwhile, Grey Priests unrolled a carpet in front of the Blue Priests. The High Bishop stood in the middle of the 10 or so Blue Priests. Now then, observe closely as you may do what I do. Praise be to the gods, declared the High Bishop while spreading and raising his arms to the sky, holding his left knee up and looking upwards. I quickly put a hand over my mouth to hold back a laugh. It wouldn't be polite to burst into laughter during a religious ceremony, I knew that. But the more I knew it was wrong, the more I wanted to laugh. My stomach wiggled as I held the laughter in. I mean, come on, that's the Jickman pose? He's just doing the look of whatever the fuck. Why that pose? Why lift up your knee? You're an old man. It's dangerous to stand on one foot like that. The fact that he was keeping perfect balance without wavering a bit just made it more funny. Honestly, it was all over for me. I was confident I would laugh no matter what the High Bishop did next. And indeed, I nearly died when he slowly lowered his legs like a Tai Chi fighter. Was he trying to assassinate my sides or something? They were already hurting so bad, and he just went and made it worse. Glory be to the gods. The High Bishop fluidly shifted from doing the whatever pose to genuflecting on the ground. That was it. Some laughter burst out of my mouth. Mime, what's wrong? You feeling sick or something? I'm fine. I'm still fine. I can do this. This is the trial the gods have given me. I held my mouth down and stuck my head down while answering Lutz. Naturally, I couldn't actually tell him that the praying pose was so funny that I couldn't stop laughing. Only those who knew the whatever pose at a glance would find this so funny, no doubt about that. This is religion. This is a real religion. Everyone's serious about this, so laughing would be rude. I managed to calm down the ripples of laughter, hitting my sides by imagining opening a classroom door and seeing my classmates praying to Allah. The way different religions prayed always looks silly from an outsider's perspective. It was just pure coincidence that this religion happened to pray by doing the whatever. Laughing would be rude. I took deep breaths and calmed myself. Once I managed to raise my head, I saw the High Bishop urging us to stand. Now then, children, please stand. We shall pray together. Together? Please no, anything but that. Everyone around me stood up together. My mouth was flapping and my sides aching. I could tell I was on the verge of bursting into hard laughter. I couldn't let that happen. I can't laugh. I told myself repeatedly, it just made me want to laugh more. Praise be to the gods, said the High Bishop as he made the what the frick is the Glicko-Man pose? That was fine. It had less impact the second time. I successfully held back the waves of laughter and felt my success through my stomach muscles. But in the next instant, the Blue Priests all did the same dang thing. Praise be to the gods. My sides instantly lost to the sight of 10 priests in a row making the poses with serious expressions on their faces. The angle of their arms, the height of their knees, their blank expressions, everything worked together to make my stomach muscles give in. I fell down on the spot. My stomach stomach hurts someone else. I held my mouth shut and tried to contain the laughter, but tears formed in my eyes and laughter slipped out. It would feel so relieving to just roll on the floor and burst into laughter while kicking it, but I couldn't, and that made me want to laugh harder. Mine, I knew you weren't okay. Lex worriedly hopped over to me on one foot as he continued making the stupid pose. That was it. He finished me off. I gave in and just pounded the floor with my fist and said, laughter. Sorry, I can't breathe. Mine, why'd you wait until I got this bad? No, I'm fine. I waved my hand at Les to tell him I was fine, but a gray priest who must have noticed something was came running over. What's wrong? Mine started feeling bad and then collapsed. She's really sick and the ceremony got her all excited, so... I had definitely gotten excited, but I wasn't feeling bad. I was just laughing too hard. I didn't need the priest's help. I'm fine. I'll get better soon. See? I hardly tried to stand up, but the sudden movement was too much for my laughter-stricken body, and my arms just gave in such that I collapsed right in front of the priest. What do you mean, see? You're not better at all. I just slipped a little. I'm really okay. So I said, but given that I was literally collapsed on the ground, there was zero chance of them believing that. From an objective standpoint, it was completely natural that the priest would believe Let's over me. I will carry her to a medical room. It would likely be best for her to rest until the ceremony's over. I sensed that the gray priest wouldn't believe anything I said, so I just limply let him pick me up. I retired from the ceremony early after having my side sent to orbit. This will probably be a painful memory that I keep to myself for the rest of my life. Yeah. Oh my god. I told you guys that was coming. Wasn't that kowtowing? I don't know. Anyway, I'll get to work on next part, and I'll see you guys next time.